Alright, hi. Motor power and equipment 203, passenger equipment safety standard module, passenger equipment safety standard, subpart B, safety planning general requirements module 2. Alright, module objectives comply with the FRA passenger equipment safety standards with inspecting passenger equipment, identify deviation from the standard, determine the inspection testing maintenance plan with the compliance based on the given the case study, determine if the training qualification designation program compliance based with the given the case study. Fire safety 238-103 new equipment and materials for the construction passenger cars of the cab of the locomotive ordered for the, and after September 8, 2000 are placed in service on or after September 9, 2002 shall make smoke emission test criteria specified in Appendix B specific approval of the procedure for the under 238-21. Materials used for the rebuild, refurbishment, overhaul of the passenger car with the cab of the locomotive shall be the smoke emission test criteria specified in Appendix B for special approval procedure under 238-21. These criteria are based on the empirical analysis, which is generally will not require validation by the FRA field inspector. Fire safety and existing equipment. Passenger railroads are required to conduct fire safety analysis of the material used with the existing passenger car of the locomotive cab, determine whether the material will comply with the smoke emission test criteria that are specified with Appendix B. Passenger railroads are required to conduct yet another fire safety analysis no later than July 10, 2003, to determine the compliance with Appendix B. If the materials do not meet the test criteria, the remedial action shall be taken with reduce the risk of exposure. Railroads are not required to replace material with existing equipment that does not meet the test criteria. If the equipment is placed with a new category of service, the new fire safety analysis shall be performed prior to the transfer, where, when possible, no later than 90 days after the transfer. Fire safety continued. Railroads are required to develop and adopt the written procedure for the inspection, testing, maintenance for all fire safety system and the fire safety equipment on the passenger equipment it operates. The FRA inspector shall periodically monitor, review, inspection, testing, maintenance, written procedures as actual application of the railroad employees to determine the decline of the effectiveness. Train hardware and software safety. 238-105. Apply with the passenger equipment under an order after September 8, 2000. Such a component with implemented with the modified of the new existing equipment on and after September 9, 2002. Safety system using high technologies to control the minor safety function of the passenger equipment, hardware and software. Control of the minor of the passenger equipment, the safety function that shall include the design feature that results in safe condition of the computer hardware or software failure. Inspection, testing, and maintenance 238-107. The section contained with the general provision requiring railroad to develop the detailed plan with the inspection, testing, maintain Tier 1 equipment. The railroad and flexibility with the tailored the use plans to accommodate with their own operating environment. Upon railroad request, railroad shall furnish for the FRA with the following information: inspection procedure for the intervals, criteria for the test procedure for the interval of the schedule, prevent maintenance for interval of the maintenance procedures, and special testing equipment and measuring devices required to perform inspection testing. Note: the advanced FRA approval is not required. Inspection, testing, and maintenance continue with each plan with the intent of the director of the employee working conditions issue relating to the employee safety during the course of the conducting inspection, testing, and maintenance for the personnel, passenger equipment.
I'm going to Wendy's because I need to get out of the house.
Alright, Mama, you can go. I'm going to stay home.
Okay, I just want to see if you want to go. Do you need anything?
No. Maintenance, passenger equipment inspection, testing, and maintenance plans must be reviewed annually by the railroad. FRA inspectors should periodically monitor review of the inspection, testing, maintenance plans against actual application of railroad employee to determine the compliance with the effectiveness. Training Qualification Designated Program 238-109. Railroads shall have the Training Qualification Designation Program with employee with the contractor performing safety related inspection, taking the name of the passenger equipment for the purpose of section of the contract defined with the person over the contract with the railroad or employee of the person over the contract with the railroad to perform any of the tasks required by this part. TQND specific 13 elements. Training qualification designation programs must contain 13 minimum elements. Identifying tasks related with the inspection, testing, and maintenance required by this product, but must be performed on each type of equipment that the railroad operates. Develop a written procedure for the performance of the tasks identified in Item 1. Identify the skills and knowledge necessary to perform each task identified in Item 1. Training qualification designation continued. 4. Adopting training curriculum that includes classroom hands-on lessons designated with impart skill with the knowledge identified with the necessary to perform each task identified in Item 1. Training curriculum shall specifically address the federal regulatory requirements contained in this product that are related to the performance of the tasks identified. Training qualification designation specifically continue. 5. Require all employees with the contract successfully completed the training course for the coverage of equipment tasks which for the responsibility are required by this product as well as specified by the federal regulatory requirements contained In this part, relate the equipment of the task for which they are responsible. Training qualification, designation specifics, and continued. 6. Requires all employees of the contractor pass examination, written or oral, covering the equipment of tasks for which they are responsible required by this part, as well as the specific federal regulatory requirements contained in this part related to the equipment and the tasks for which they are responsible. Training qualifications and designations specific continued. 7. Required all employees of the contractor to individually demonstrate hands-on capability successfully performing the task required in this part, but must be performed as part of their duty of the type of equipment into which they are assigned. 8. Requires supervisors to complete with the program and the cover the employees from whom they supervise, include with the refresher training. Training qualifications and designations specifically continued. 9. Requires supervisors to exercise oversight to ensure that all identified tasks are performed in accordance with the railroad written procedure. 10. Designation written with which each employee of the contractor has knowledge and skills necessary to perform the safety-related tasks that are part of his or her job. Training qualification designations specifically continued. 11. Required periodic refresher training at an interval of not exceeding 3 years that include the classroom hands-on training as well as testing, except for the employee with the contractors that have completed the initial training under the part of the prior to January 1st, 2002, shall not be required to complete with the first periodic refreshing training until 4 years after the completion of the initial training and every 3 years after. Training qualification designations specifically continued. And new equipment of the qualification designation program provided the introduction revenue service. And 13. Maintain records adequate for demonstrating that each employee of the contractor performing safety-related tasks on the passenger equipment currently qualified to do so, with the record shall be the adequate to distinguish qualification of the employee with the contractor, a qualified person with a qualified maintenance person. Training qualification designation compliance. The FRA inspector should periodically monitor review training qualification designation programs against actual application of the railroad employee to determine the compliance with effectiveness practice. Refer to this case data in the handouts. Alright, pre-revenues for the acceptance testing plan 238.11.1. Limited testing compatibility tests for the equipment required for the equipment that previously be used in the USA prior to the placing of the revenue service. The detailed testing of the equipment required of the equipment placed for the revenue service for the first time has not previously been used in the U.S. and actual approval of the test plan required by the FRA prior to placing Tier 2 equipment with the revenue service. Tier 1 equipment must also have the test plan submitted to the FRA, but the FRA approved and not required prior to the placing of the equipment of revenue service, provided plans submitted within 30 days in advance. The criteria are based on an empirical analysis, which generally will not require validation by a FRA field inspector. Emergency window exit 238.113. Emergency window exit passenger equipment in order after September 8, 2000, placing for the first time after September 9, 2002, shall be unobstructed and have a dimension of 26 inches wide and 24 inches high. Each passenger car shall have the minimum 4 emergency window exits of the staggered configuration practicable on each end of each side of the car. Multiple level of passenger equipment shall have the 4 on each main level of the range of the indicated above. Sleeping compartments and 10 with the crew members or passengers shall have the minimum of 1 emergency window exit in each of the compartment. Emergency windows exits shall be designated to permit rapid and easy removal without use of tools. Alright, emergency lighting 238.115. Emergency lighting applied to each of the passenger car ordered on and after September 8, 2000 or placed in service the first time on or after September 9, 2002. Emergency lighting requirements. Emergency lighting in passenger cars shall consist of the following: provide an average illumination 1-foot candle measured for the floor level at each exterior and interior door, providing access to an exterior door such as the door opening and vestibule on each level of the passenger car. Provide average illumination 1-foot candle measured 25 inches above the floor level along with the center line and each aisle and passageway. Provide minimum illumination level of 1/10 of the foot candle above the floor level at the point along the center line with each aisle and passageway. And emergency lighting requirement continue to have a backup power system capable of operating all equipment orientations within 45-degree vertical, operate after initial shock and collision derailment, specific loads, function at least 90 minutes without loss of more than 40% of the minimum illumination level previously discussed. Protection against personal injury 238.117. All passenger equipment at each private car shall be equipped with appropriate guards for the interlock, minimize the risk of the personal injury relating to high voltage equipment, electrical inductors, switches, and hot fluid or gases. Ram stamped straight plate wheels. 238-119. Except the provided with rim stamp straight plate wheels are prohibited from use of the passenger vehicle, and shoe acts on the tread of the wheel for the purpose of slowing the vehicle. Subject of the wheels may not be used with the replacement wheels on private car if the shoe acts on the tread of the wheel for the purpose of slowing the car. Exemptions include the following: the commuter railroad with the subject wheel mounted with the inboard bearing axle of existing inventory have been depleted with the May 12, 1999. Provided railroad does not modify the operation in any way with the result of the increase of thermal loads wheel during the braking, tread braking of short duration by automatic circuitry for sole purpose of cleaning wheel tread surface. This is the end of Module 2. Take a break.